Decision is a function of clarity, not a function of time. So many people put off decisions because they need more time to sit with it. They need more time to feel good about it. There are millions and millions and millions of people who have something that they've wanted that they've put off forever, and they never decide. Hey everyone, so this video is going to be on how indecision is keeping you weak and what you can do to fix it. You might be indecisive about your partner, right? Taking your relationship to the next level, proposing, getting married, maybe having children, maybe starting a business or scaling your current business or hiring people to come into your business and help you, or getting healthy or ending a relationship that is uninspiring and you know needs to end and it's not serving you, or perhaps making boundaries that you know you need to make. By putting off all those decisions, you are keeping yourself weak and you're keeping yourself just basically not going forward at all in life in the way that you want to. And I'm going to show you the top tactics that your brain is using against you to keep yourself stuck, keep yourself weak, and give you a reframe of how to make decisions in a really empowered way, and give you two frameworks for moving forward at a rapid pace in your life and being able to go all in on decision making this year. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Yamuna. I lived as a monk for 4 years in monasteries all over the world, dedicating my life to self-actualization, study, and service of the community. I then went on to found Jivanam Ayurveda and Wellness, which is a holistic education company where we train people up in India's healing sciences of bodywork and holistic lifestyle principles. And now we run Conscious Business Mastery. We have a team of 15, and we partner with holistic coaches, thought leaders, course creators, retreat leaders, and people who facilitate trainings and scale their businesses to $1 million plus per year. We have an incredible community. That's who I am, and I'm super excited you're here. If you like what I'm talking about, please just hit the subscribe. I'm trying to grow this channel, and share with your friends if you find it valuable. Now, I'm going to give you some of my top pet peeves for how people make decisions that I find completely unhelpful. And this is after having thousands and thousands and thousands of conversations with people on sales calls, as coaching clients, and as a monk as well. So the first one that just drives me absolutely wild is thinking that you need to feel good. And this can be cloaked in like this new movement of like the full body yes, or being, if you're not an F yes, you're an F no. If you don't feel like fuck yes to this, then you are an F no to this, okay? And I just find that it's an extremely dangerous philosophy to use, because I don't think anybody on the planet who ever built anything big felt like an F yes while they were making some of the decisions that they had to make, because they're tough decisions. They're decisions that really challenge your level of faith in yourself and ability to tolerate risk and ability to go all in on your mission and test that. And needing to feel a F yes is really just a way of protecting yourself from failure, because feeling an F yes is predicated on feeling completely good about the decision. And feeling completely good about the decision means you need to have all the variables perfectly mapped out and have a very high chance of success to even be able to put your toes in the pond and swim. And that's just not going to be reality, especially when you're trying to make exponential jumps and exponential growth decisions. Because for instance, if you're just like at $10,000 per month, which is great, and you're trying to go to $11,000 or $12,000 a month, like that's just a natural progression that you could probably get to without making really any big decisions. But if you're trying to go from, make radical change and go from like $10,000 to $100,000 a month, you're not going to know the exact path to get there because you've never done it. And you're not going to feel good because most of the variables are not things you have executed fully before. And because of that, it's not going to feel like an F yes, right? But by choosing something big, and making these bold decisions, you strengthen yourself, okay? And I'm gonna show you how to do that in the right way later on in the video. But this one just drives me wild, like people that are like, I need to feel in every cell of my body that this is yes. When you make all the important decisions on your life on the emotional reality that you're experiencing, which is subject to change by so many different variables of what you're eating, to how much sleep you got, to so many things, then you're setting yourself up for a lot of turmoil and a lot of limitation. The second one that drives me wild is called the have, do, be fallacy. Okay, so maybe you've heard the framework of like be, do, have, like who do I need to be in order to act and like do the things I know I need to do so then I can have the things I want to have. It's a framework that's really helpful. If you haven't looked it up, please look it up. Be, do, have framework. But the opposite of that framework is the have, do, be fallacy, which is essentially I need to have certain things, right? Certain things in my environment like need to change. Like I need to have time, or I need to have space, or I need to have money, or I need to have a healthier body, or I need to have whatever so that I can do the things I know I need to do, right? So that I can be the person I want to be. And your deciding of who you want to be and how you want to move through the world is dependent on the externals of life shifting. Okay. Basically framing yourself as a victim to the environment and completely dependent on the environment changing so that you can be who you say you want to be. That is another huge one that I see, and I'll give you another one of how this can play out. So another one that I definitely have experienced myself and fallen for myself is the thought that other people are responsible for my success and responsible for my decisions. And so to give you an example of this, which is another example of like placing responsibility onto the environment and onto the externals, like I just said with the have to be fallacy. Give you an example. I lived as a monk, in India, but also in a monastery in New York City. And there was a fantastic project. We were doing outreach all over the city, cooking meals for thousands of people for free, doing yoga programs, Ayurveda programs, high-level trainings, high-level speaking engagements. And I was surrounded by incredible leaders and master-level teachers and gurus, people that were just getting these awesome opportunities to speak on stage, to help celebrity clients, to lead worldwide pilgrimages and high-level trainings. And, being young and like having studied some books and Ayurveda and like loving to teach and inspire people, I was like, man, that feels like it should be me. Like, I feel like I should be having these opportunities. And this was when I was kind of like transitioning from being like purely a monk, which is just completely, renounced, to starting my own, like getting my feet into the world. And I was transitioning from monk life to outside world life, which in my tradition, you don't have to be a lifelong monk or commit to that. I knew I was going to commit like a few year period to being a monk. And I was just feeling like all this comparison and judgment and feeling like, oh, well, the reason I haven't been extremely successful and I'm stuck where I am is because the organization I'm a part of hasn't promoted me enough. Or it's because my mentor hasn't hooked me up with the celebrity clients that he said he was. Or it's because I don't have the same karma as these other people that are so popular and they have huge followings on Instagram and opportunities seem to come to them effortlessly. And I was placing all this responsibility outside of myself instead of understanding that I can simply decide to take the actions that successful people take and embody the character traits that successful people embody. And it was really frustrating for me because I did feel like I had a lot to give, and maybe you feel like that too, like your potential is a lot more than you're accessing right now. And it's so dangerous to place the gateway for your next level as something that other people are guarding or external circumstances guarding or that needing to feel an FES is guarding. Because if you do not decide consciously, I'm all in on me, I'm all in on my mission, I'm all in on what I stand for, I know who I am, I know how I serve, then your decisions will be made for you. You'll be subject to just the blowing winds of the environment around you. And usually that just kind of settles the dust of your aspirations at its lowest acceptable point. Okay, I shared this in another video I made. Like, we are not the highest thing that we aspire to. We are the lowest thing that we will accept. Okay, we are the lowest standard that we'll accept, not the highest thing that we aspire to. And I'm going to share a framework and a few examples of how you can begin to change this. So the first way to rewire these really poor decision-making frameworks that I just named that drive me wild is to understand that decision is a function of clarity, not a function of time. So many people put off decisions because they need more time to sit with it. They need more time to feel good about it. And the thing is, How do we know it's not a function of time, right? Some of you might be saying, hey, well, sometimes I do just need to sit with it and have more time. Okay, first thing you need to understand is that you've only been able to achieve the results you have in life from the way of making decisions that you've been able to figure out so far. Okay, the way you make decisions, it determines the level of results you get. And so in order to get totally different results, you need to understand how to make decisions in a completely different way, or else it would be unreasonable to make decisions in the same exact way and expect different results to come. Now, how do I know that decision is not a function of time? Well, we just look out into the world and we see that there are millions and millions and millions of people who have something that they've wanted that they've put off forever and they never decide. That's all the proof. People can have all the time. Every human has 24 hours a day and an average lifespan of 78 or whatever it is. We all have that general amount of time. And yet some people make incredible decisions and build massive missions. And some people hardly make any important decisions and just kind of settle to the lowest standard that they'll accept for themselves. So how do I know? Well, that's how I know that decision is not a direct function of time, but decision is a function of clarity. And clarity is a function of understanding the variables at play and deciding if you want to play that game, deciding if you want to take that risk, deciding if you trust yourself enough to go all in on this thing. So I'm going to give you 2 ways of understanding that decision is a function of clarity and share some other frameworks with you. So I'm going to put this on the screen so you can see it, but the first is an equation that I found from Sam Ovens and I modified, but the equation is C plus PE to the power of T equals D. Okay, I'll explain what this is, but it's C plus PE to the power of T equals D. All right, now let's define the variables. D is your dream. So everything that we're doing in this equation is to figure out how do we achieve your dream. And we need to define what that dream outcome is, first of all. C is your current situation, whatever your current situation in life is. P is your plan. E is the daily execution of that plan, which is, execution is going to be a combination of your proficiency. So how skilled you do certain tasks, the level of focus, the level of effort you put in. And T stands for time, which is a compounding variable, right? Because the more you execute your daily plan over a long enough time horizon, it has compounding effects. You get better and better, you get more skilled at it, you do it in less amount of time, et cetera, et cetera. So when you figure out all of these variables, when you figure out your current situation plus your plan times your daily execution of that plan to the exponent of how much time has passed equals dream, then you have a really good understanding by which to frame how you make decisions, how you use your time on the day-to-day, understand does this actually help me with my plan? Does this actually help me with the daily execution of that plan? Does this actually help me reduce the amount of time it takes? And does it play into the equation of my dream? If not, why are we doing it? Why are we including it? Why are we entertaining it as a decision? Why are we tolerating it essentially in our lives? So fill out this equation and I'll make sure that you have this equation below in the resources. So that's one equation that's very, very helpful, is the C plus PE to the power of T equals D. Another thing from an energetic perspective, this is more a tactical perspective, but from an energetic perspective, one of the most powerful things, and I just shared this with my team on a meeting, which is what inspired this video, is to understand that any decision you've ever made has helped you get to the place you are now. And the majority of your learnings have probably come from turmoil and quote unquote failure, rather than when just things work really smoothly and get you the result you want. And so when you understand how your sufferings and how your failures have built you, then you internalize that as an identity, that no matter what happens, because of the person I am, I'm going to thrive. My decisions lead to growth. If I harm someone, through this decision unconsciously, I trust myself enough to make it right. I trust myself enough to obviously also understand that I'm not just going to go off and do something wild and go do some hard drugs just because I want to prove I'm a decisive person. But when you deeply trust yourself in your ability to move through the dualities of life then any decision you make is a divine plan and will help you unfold the person that you're meant to be when you approach it from the right consciousness. Because some people have really great circumstances and they just go downward because of their decision making. And some people have really, really poor circumstances, like really tough, and they make it into gold and they make it into something so divine and beautiful and meaningful. And so the circumstance does not make you. There's a beautiful quote, circumstance does not make a man, it reveals him to himself. And I think that that's true with this decision-making process, that if you trust yourself to be in integrity and to be moving forward as a human, no matter what the circumstance is, and then that's what's revealed even in turmoil, then you say, oh, that's just the person I am. And no matter what, I can boldly make any decision knowing that I'm good, I'm protected, I'm covered, no matter if this completely works out or completely crashes and burns. All right, because I got me and I am, divinely cared for, essentially. A few philosophical points on this topic of decision not being a function of clarity, or not being a function of time, but being a function of clarity, is the frog in the pot analogy. So they did this experiment, which of course is, kind of cruel, but they had a boiling pot of water and a lukewarm pot of water. All right. And they threw a toad into the boiling pot of water, and again, a new toad, they'd throw it in and it would just immediately jump out, right? It would touch the water and it would just jump right out. And in the other one, they would put a toad into the lukewarm water and the toad would sit there, and they had the burner on really low heat. And basically like the water was getting warmer and warmer and warmer. And the toad would just literally sit there until the temperature got so hot that it would just die. And it would just sit there. It wouldn't jump out. And this is how so many people are, because they haven't cranked up the heat on what they tolerate in their life. Okay, like it has to get to this like boiling point, right? Like someone has to like have a heart attack or like be like on the brink of divorce to like finally pay attention to their wife or whatever. That's the majority of people are wait for circumstance to force them into making a decision rather than proactively making one. And it's really messed up. You don't want to have to be a reactive person. You want to be a proactive person. That's how anything great is built. And even Jesus, he told his disciples, and I really love this quote. He says, I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth, right? So essentially he's saying, be hot or be cold, but don't be lukewarm. If you're lukewarm, I spit you out of my mouth, right? Nobody wants a lukewarm drink. No one wants a wife that's lukewarm about the relationship. No one wants a boss that's lukewarm about the business and the mission of the business. So like notice that, like either decide that it's not something you value and be decisive about that. Like, okay, building a big business actually just isn't a value of mine, and I can decide to not do that. Or I can crank up the heat and decide to go all in, take a chance, trust myself that things will work out even if this completely quote unquote fails. Another thing to remember, another example here, is that out of all the NBA players who have broken records for like most three-pointer shots made in history, they are also the same people who have missed the most three-pointer shots in history. So how did they get good? By understanding that perfection is not a function of making as little mistake as possible, but by doing so much volume and taking so much chance that it's impossible for them to not win. Okay, it's impossible for them to not be the best just because they've put in 10 times more reps than anybody else has, and knowing that most of those are going to result in quote unquote failure or not the ideal outcome that they wanted. And so just that statistic alone, like the top NBA players who have made the most three-pointer shots are the same exact players who have also missed the most three-pointer shots, right? But all you're seeing on the outside is, they're just extraordinarily good and they make the most three-pointer shots. But you're not seeing, the statistics of most missed shots, because people don't show that. They don't show most missed shots. And I'll give you a few examples and then my two frameworks to decide below, and I'll go ahead and end this after that. So a few examples of being really decisive for me. One was buying a retreat house. We were in upstate New York, my wife and I, and we found a 14-bedroom boarding house that was like 8,000 square feet on a few acres of property, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I was making, decent money, a few $100,000. And I thought like, okay, yeah, I can definitely buy this. I was so hyped up. And we had seen a few properties at this point. And right when I saw this property, I was like, boom, here's 50 grand down, signed the contract, got the land survey, etc. And I've never run a retreat center before. Maybe it seems ridiculous or irresponsible or whatever, but I trusted myself enough. Like, I have mentors. I've lived in a retreat center. I've, led a lot of retreats myself. I've run a business. I trusted myself enough to know that I wasn't going to completely crash and burn. At the very least, like, I could Airbnb it out and pay for the mortgage if I really wanted to. So I trusted myself enough to make a radical decision to buy, almost $1 million property when I wasn't making that much money. But it was just a vision and a passion of mine. I ended up not getting the house because of legal specifications of the house. They changed it from being sold as a single family home for like 200 years since it was built, to having to be bought as a commercial property, like right when we were going to close on the deal. And so it ended up messing up all the paperwork and ended up having the deal not go through after like 4 or 5 months of trying to make it work and having the finances and everything. Another one that I've shared, of course, many times was hiring my first coach. It was when I spent $27,000 hiring a mentor, and my entire life savings was $24,000. And the most I had made in a month was maybe $3,000 or $4,000. And at this time, I had also moved to a new state, so all of my income was gone. So I agreed to spend more than my entire life income, or my entire life savings, and I had zero new money coming in. And I looked at my wife, and she was just like, yeah, do it. And I decided to do it. And before the program even started, before the coaching or any education happened, I made pretty much the entirety of that tuition back in 5 weeks. And I never did that or anything close to that before. And it was before I got access to any help. It was just from deciding, the power of deciding, yes, I know I can go all in on me. And I'm saying yes to the result I want in life, not to this coach. Okay? Not relying on this coach to get me the result. I'm saying yes to me getting the result. And if this coach helps me, awesome. I also invested in a $68,000 mentorship, 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago. Also, my dream car, which was a Rivian, an electric SUV, adventure SUV. I've been seeing it for years and was on the wait list. It all of a sudden popped up of like, you're eligible to buy one of our in-stock Rivians right now. And I just, boom, pressed 2 buttons and boom. The next day or 2 days later, I was driving to go get it. And all of these things have helped me, because if I just needed to think about it all the time, I wouldn't have all the good things that have come from that. All right. And I've lost money too, and I've made mistakes, and I've learned. Now, as the final thing, I'm going to give you 2 quick exercises to take your decision making to the next level. One is what I call from TBD to TBD. So what do I mean by that? One TBD means to be determined, right? What it normally means. But we found this term that we call time-bound dedication. All right. And I'll explain what this means. So we want to take you from to be determined, right, which essentially means to be decided, into TBD, which is time-bound dedication. So we've helped a lot of people with this framework. For instance, we had a friend that was like in a relationship, and they were just like dating each other and like getting to know each other. And there was like a little bit of turmoil in the relationship, and they're like, I don't know, like if it's going to work out or whatever. And, we shared a lot of things that were helpful for them when they were asking us for advice. And one of the things that helped the most was this time-bound dedication. So we essentially just said, what if for the next 3 months, you were both all in on making the relationship work, and put aside all the other variables for a moment of like whether this is forever or not, but just like for the next 3 months, we're 100% dedicated to making this work and like treating each other with love and respect and kindness and getting to know each other. And that essentially, was a big part of saving their relationship and helping them understand like, okay, this isn't a decision that I'm committing to forever right now, because it can kind of seem daunting when we do that. But rather, if I just commit for the next 3 months, what will happen? And they ended up have had an amazing relationship. They just got engaged, just got married actually. Another was deciding to be a monk. When I joined the monastery, I knew that I wasn't going to be a monk forever. And I knew I wanted a family. I knew I wanted a career. And in my tradition, like I was sharing, you don't have to dedicate your entire life to be a monk, because most people are not qualified mentally or physiologically to do that. They don't have the right archetype of personality to be able to sustain that forever, right? And deciding to do something like that forever makes a lot of people in the renounced, lineages of life, like, being a priest or a monk, it makes them kind of while out and do things that are inappropriate. Whereas when it's time bound and you know that you can't make this decision forever, I just decided I'm going to dedicate at least 4 years to going all in on, mastering my mind, dedicating myself to service, overcoming some like compulsions and like negative habits that I had, and just like nourishing my inner world and understanding who I was at a deeper level. And by just deciding I'm going to do this for 4 years, or I'm going to do this for a year initially is what I decided. And then I rededicated after a year to another year. And then I rededicated after another year to another year. And I put these chunks of time that felt challenging, but they didn't feel like forever and like daunting things that I had to commit to forever. That was super, super helpful and is part of this time-bound dedication. And so there's many, many other examples of how I've used TBD to help me empower myself, essentially. Because if you think of things in absolutes of like never or forever, it's really hard to decide. I'm never going to do something again, right? I'm never going to do this negative habit again. It's really hard to not do that negative habit forever, especially when the weight of forever is on top of you. Or I'm going to commit to this business for the rest of my life. Any of those extremes I found put too much weight on the decision and make it hard to actually execute. Whereas when you use time-bound dedication of like, I'm going all in for 3 months or 6 months or a year or 2 years and figuring out this problem or whatever, it is much, much more empowering. And then the last one, take me 30 seconds to explain, is switching from end of week or end of month mentality to end of day. So all the things that you think you have to put off, that you are going to move the needle forward with, like my business needs this one thing, like I need to launch my new ads, or I need to create this new funnel, or I need to, announce my new program. I'll do it on Friday, end of week. I'll do it by end of week. Just change whatever that number one thing that's going to move the needle forward from end of week or end of month mentality to end of day. Now you've just 7x'd the speed of growth that you can move at. Just take it for what it is, try it out for this month and see if you can think about, okay, what's that number one thing that's going to move my business forward or my health forward or my relationship forward? Can I do that by end of day today rather than waiting to end of week or end of month? And you'll see you can, and you can speed up the growth incredibly. So that's all I got for this video. Again, if you like this, please subscribe, please share. I'm trying to be a little bit more regular with this. And I hope that you can decide to go all in on who you want to be this year and just help way more people by setting the example of how to be a decisive person. So peace out. See you in the next video. Hari Om Tat Sat.